we are live. What is going on, people? We got a nice Sunday slate. A lot more games than we typically see on a Sunday that we got to go over here. Some news just coming out. That's pretty relevant, so we will talk about that. Pulling up the Twitter machine over here, we can see that the Magic are planning on starting Anthony Harris, Franz Wagner, Okeke, and Bamba. So that's the first piece of news with there being no Wendell Carter Jr. Okeke is going to slide into the starting lineup here. Desmond Bane is listed as questionable. We already have John Morant listed as questionable. That could make these Memphis Grizzlies value plays we've discussed earlier in my earlier video even better. Kyle Anderson still questionable. Dylan Brooks was ruled out. So still waiting on a little bit of news, but we did get confirmation on the Wendell Carter Jr. news. And we have gotten some confirmation on some other stuff. So we'll talk about that as we go along the slate. Luka is still listed as questionable. De'Aaron Fox is still listed as questionable. Patrick Beverley is still listed as questionable. And Montrezl Harrell was ruled out. So we did get confirmation on that. Patrick says, what's up? How you doing, Patrick? Welcome into the live stream. And let's do a game-by-game breakdown here. So the first game we got to talk about is this Washington-Orlando game. Like I said, we did get confirmation there is no Wendell Carter Jr. So Okeke is going to slide into the starting lineup for the Orlando Magic. Now, as far as how much interest I have in him tonight, he's not grading out as exactly too big of a priority for me. Looking at my sheet here, we've gotten a lot of other pieces of news that have really opened up some really great value here. So not exactly thinking I'm going to be getting too much exposure over here on DraftKings if I were playing here. Looking at Okeke's price tag, he's at 4.3. I mean, still a respectable play. He's certainly valid, but I just think there's some other spots that we're going to be going to, most notably Brandon Clark, my lock of the night. We'll talk about that as we continue to go along the slate, but Okeke, not exactly going to be a top priority for me, and as far as anyone in this game overall, in this Washington-Orlando game, honestly, it's not looking to be too intriguing outside of some Mo Bamba exposure with there being no Wendell Carter Jr. I do think that Mo Bamba gets a big bump up. Some Terrence Ross as well, going to be a bit of an intriguing play here on the Orlando side, so those would kind of be the first two guys I'm looking to. Mo Bamba is only 5'8". He's underpriced as far as I'm concerned on both websites, so I certainly am willing to get some more exposure to him. We did get some Alex Lennox value opening up with the confirmation that Damian Jones is ruled out, so that'll be interesting to talk about as we go along here. But yeah, Mo Bamba I think is a great play. Terrence Ross at the bench and Gary Harris, I think both are going to take on a lot more responsibility as far as scoring is concerned, believe it or not, with there being no Wendell Carter Jr. We saw Gary Harris have a really solid game last night. Not exactly common thing from him. He put up 28 real-life points, 41 DraftKings points. But he can get you there in other categories. And honestly, he's been scoring very efficiently as of late. So I do think that we can start to take Gary Harris a little bit more seriously as far as a scorer for the time being. Maybe that fades off, but I certainly think he's interesting. On the Washington side, by far my favorite play to run it back with probably now is going to be Daniel Gafford. Now that there isn't confirmed no Montrezl Harrell. This Orlando defense has been terrible all season long. He should have a lot of upside in this spot. So if you want to go with a Daniel Gafford, I do certainly think that he's going to continue to be an intriguing play on this slate tonight. Anyone else not too intrigued? I mean, Bradley Beal has seen his price tag drop in a big way at 9.6. But Spencer Dinwiddie comes back, and that's really impacted his usage. So certainly willing to take advantage of that price tag drop. He certainly has a lot more upside than this. But just keep in mind, Spencer Dinwiddie is back in the equation. That's going to hurt both Kyle Kuzma and Bradley Beal because he's just going to take away that usage from him. At 6'3", Spencer Dinwiddie is priced pretty friendly as well. He could certainly get there, but these guys cutting into each other's usage. I do think Dinwiddie would be my favorite at his price tag. Like I said, I like Daniel Gafford. On the other side, Cole Anthony by far the top play. He's only 7'6". He was priced up to 8'1", 8'4". He's been consistently putting up 40-plus DraftKings points, and his price tag has come down. Why? I do not know, but I certainly would be willing to get some exposure to a Cole Anthony. New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Toronto Raptors. I think this is going to be a really great game environment. We did get confirmation there is no Josh Hart in this one. That should give some more minutes to a Garrett Temple, a Najee Marshall, mainly Garrett Temple. But also I think that's going to give more rebound upside to a Jonas Valanciunas, believe it or not. I talked about this earlier, but Josh Hart's actually a really good wing rebounder. So he oftentimes goes in there and steals some. I think that's going to actually increase JV's upside and also Brandon Ingram. I mean, these are the two main candidates for usage on the offense. These two guys are going to really have to carry the load in this one in a pretty good game environment. It's a 222 over-under with an 8-point spread in favor of the Toronto Raptors. These two guys really going to have to step up and play good games if the game's going to stay close. So I do think it makes plenty of sense to be getting some Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas exposure in this one. followed up by some of these cheaper guys. Devontae Graham at 5'7", with there being no Josh Hart, should get a big bump up. He's definitely a little bit more versatile. Can certainly have big games, but don't be surprised if he busts for you. It's just kind of the way Devontae Graham goes. He can certainly have some big upside games at 5'7". Could he go out there and really do a whole lot of nothing, though? Yes, as well. So he's a little bit scary to be rolling out there, but he could certainly pay off. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you would think would get more minutes, more usage. They seem to really be capping his minutes with no Josh Hart. Maybe this is the game he finally steps up, gets all those minutes at 3.7. He's certainly grading out as a good play for me. I mean, the guy puts up 0.90 DK points per minute, and they just seem to not really want to run him out there. If there was ever a game you would think that he's going to get some run with Josh Hart out of the equation, you would think this would be it. So I'm certainly willing to take some risks on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and a guy that's definitely got his minutes solidified that's going to get more minutes is Mr. Garrett Temple down here at 3.4. Regardless of the output, I mean, he doesn't exactly have the best fantasy point per minute clip on the season, though. He has looked quite a bit better. I mean, I would say 0.74 DK point per minute clip for him this season. That's not terrible, especially at a 3.4 price tag. Certainly would be willing to take a risk on a guy that I expect to get around 30 minutes in this one. So he makes sense. Herbert Jones gets a big bump up as well. I just think that Herbert Jones' price tag is a little bit more appropriate. And running it back on the other side, we know the Toronto Raptors, they keep their rotation really tight. Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, the top two fantasy producers here on this team. The only concern that I have is these guys' price tags are pretty appropriate for their output at this point, whereas we do have some guys much cheaper on their side in and OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Gary Trent Jr., who all play around the same minutes, all of whom can easily surpass these price tags. 5.5 for Gary Trent, Scotty Barnes 7.4. So I do think that paying up for VanVleet and Siakam is viable, but taking the discount on these guys, I just think they really have a lot of upside for their price tags. They all play in the mid-30s. The Toronto Raptors rotation's like, one of the favorites to target. If the game stays close, they're going to play a ton of minutes. So certainly would be getting exposure to that game and a lot of exposure to this next game. These two games I'm really liking, and I'm really liking the last two games on the slate too. We'll get to those. But kind of a few games that really stand out to me in a big way on this slate, and some games that I'm not too intrigued about. So we'll talk about that. But this game, definitely one that I like. D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, this game's going to be fast, up-tempo. The Houston Rockets defense has been terrible all season long. Looking at my latest updated defensive half-court and putbacks tool over here on Patreon, I can see that the Houston Rockets grade out as the second worst defense in the league. 29th in points per possession rank, 28th in half-court points per play rank, 24th in offensive rebounding percentage allowed, 23rd in putbacks. So certainly going to think that this is a tremendous spot for a Karl-Anthony Towns as well. He should get a lot of rebounds in this one, you would tend to think. We already know he can shoot the ball very effectively. He puts up a great per-minute clip. So Karl-Anthony Towns, I think, is a really great play. D'Angelo Russell, I think it's a really great play. Anthony Edwards, I think it's a really great play. All three of these guys going to play in the mid-30s minutes. All three of which absolutely dominate the usage of this entire Minnesota Timberwolves team. And if you want to play all three, I think you could. It's a little bit scary paying up for Karl-Anthony Towns at 9.9. And it's still expecting these guys at 7.8 and 8K to get there, though. So I would say, ideally, you're probably either paying up for Karl-Anthony Towns and playing one of the two of D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards, or you're playing both Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell, not Karl-Anthony Towns. But if there was ever time they could all get there, I really think this is the spot. So I would start with that. Running it back on the Houston side, it's Christian Wood, it's Kevin Porter Jr. for me. Top two usage guys, top two upside guys. If the game stays close, I really think you could stack this game up with these guys. Running it back with those Minnesota Timberwolves options that we talked about. Kind of predictable as to who has the biggest upside on both these teams, and it's those guys that we just talked about. So I really do like getting a lot of exposure to those guys, but I will say some of these Houston guys are priced very friendly as well that get a lot of minutes. Jayshawn Tate, Eric Gordon, both priced in the mid-5K range. Well, Tate's 5.4. Eric Gordon's actually even cheaper, 4.7. So once again, guys that could pay off in a fast, up-tempo game. Not typically guys that we're getting too thrilled about playing, but the fact of the matter remains, the price tags are low. I really do think that there's some really solid tournament options, and we did get confirmation that our Armani Brooks entered health and safety protocols. So what does that mean? I mean, that's an extra 15 minutes to go around. They're going to have to spread it out somehow, so you're probably looking to a David Nwaba, a Josh Christopher getting a few more minutes, and then also I just think that solidifies the minutes even more for an Eric Gordon, a KJ Martin, etc. But overall, I don't think it's really necessary to get too cute with these guys on here. Really just stick to those main guys we talked about. Garrison Matthews could possibly return. He's questionable. If he slides back in the game, I mean, David Nwaba and Josh Christopher are probably going to take a bit of a hit in their run. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. Denver taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Once again, I talked about I really like a few select games on the slate. This is not one of them. It's only a 214 over-under. The Denver Nuggets are favored by 7. The Oklahoma City Thunder have been terrible all season long. I could easily see this game turning into a blowout. And for that reason, I just don't really think I'm too interested. Nikola Jokic at 12-2, the best fantasy point per minute producer in the league on the season. He's been absolutely phenomenal, so don't get me wrong. He's always going to be a viable pay-up option, putting up 1.8 DK points per minute. That is phenomenal. But slower pace game. There's some other spots we talked about. Karl-Anthony Towns in a really fast up-tempo game at a discount. I think he could possibly match Nikola Jokic's output today. Is it likely? Probably not. But if there was ever time to, I mean, it's a slow pace game for Nikola Jokic. Karl-Anthony Towns, I really think this could be a smash spot for him. So if you're asking me who I'm taking on the slate, I would take Karl-Anthony Towns over Nikola Jokic for the price tag discount. If you think this game is going to stay close, it's going to stay close because either SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Josh Giddey have a big game, or you could be looking to a Lou Dort. But like I said, I really don't like this game all too much. If I had to pick one guy, it would be Josh Giddey running it back on the Oklahoma City side. He has been running the point guard position a lot for these guys, and his price tag has plummeted from 7.9 down to 7K now. It's just, do I really like targeting this Denver defense? I mean, they're not the best in the world, but they're definitely not the worst. So the 15th graded defense in the league. Looking at the Oklahoma City, they're 17th overall in points per possession rank. So this game's just not really one I want to get a lot of exposure to. We have some other games we've talked about and some games that we're going to talk about further that are a lot better. I would round things out by saying Monty Morris at 4.7 I do think is priced at a very friendly price tag. So if you want to go to him on DraftKings, I do think he's viable based upon the fact that he's a starting point guard. His price tag's all the way down to 4.7. So I certainly wouldn't call you crazy if you want to get some Monty Morris exposure, but honestly, he's the one that's grading out the best for me in this game, and it's really not even too close. The only other guy I will mention is JaMychal Green. JaMychal Green is 3.4. His price tag is very cheap. Now, once again, not really too intrigued to be playing too many guys from this game, but when you look at JaMychal Green, he played 22 minutes last time out. He put up 28 DraftKings points. He's not playing the most minutes in the world, but he can produce at a pretty high rate, putting up 0.94 DK points per minute on the season. So if you want to go down to him at 3.4, you need that last roster spot. You need the salary relief. I do think he's viable. However, there are some pretty cheap value plays that have opened up that are right around the same price range that we'll talk about later on the slate that are probably going to get a lot more minutes than him. So Chicago taking on Dallas. Next game on the slate. The biggest piece of news we're waiting on is Luka Doncic. This is obviously a huge piece of news. If he's out, Jalen Brunson, Frank Ntilikina, Trey Burke would see more expanded roles. But the biggest pieces of news, I mean, obviously the biggest and best plays, I would say, are Jalen Brunson and Tim Hardaway Jr. Both guys which get a big bump up with there being no Luka Doncic on the floor. And we would really want to be getting a lot of exposure to a Jalen Brunson, to Tim Hardaway Jr. These guys' upside would become tremendous. Looking at the Vegas lines in this one, this game comes with a 217.5 over-under with a 2.5 point spread in favor of the Chicago Bulls. I tend to think with only a 2.5 point spread, that means that we're expecting Luka Doncic to play here. Jalen Brunson's price tag on FanDuel is really low, regardless of whether Luka Doncic plays or not. So we'll talk about that as we continue along the slate. But yeah, it's going to be a big piece of news here. Luka Doncic. That's obviously going to really impact who we're having interest in here. If Luka's in, maybe you could get him a lot lower owned than you typically would because he's been listed as questionable all day. So that's certainly worth taking note of. If he's out, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr. become really, really great upside plays on this slate tonight. You could also be taking a little bit of a look to a Dorian Finney-Smith, a Reggie Bullock, a Maxi Kleber. They're just not quite as good at fantasy point producers. I think I'd want to be filling my lineup with other spots. We saw Reggie Bullock go crazy last time out, putting up 33 DraftKings points. He's really scoring reliant. He typically doesn't produce at a high rate, so I wouldn't be taking that with too much of a serious note there. Just kind of take it with a grain of salt kind of thing. And yeah, Frank Ntilikina, Trey Burke. Ntilikina played 16 minutes last time out. Trey Burke at 3.2, played 16 minutes. You could go there. Their punt plays, they certainly do produce a high rate, so they could get you there. But I think it's most likely getting a little too cute for my liking. It's definitely viable in tournaments. But yeah, moving ahead to this next game. Cleveland taking on the Golden State Warriors, guys. If you're enjoying this stream, if you could take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload, that would be greatly appreciated. Looks like we got about 17 people in here. Only 5 likes. Trying to get to 20 likes on all these live streams. So if you're enjoying the stream, take a second to hit that like button. It is greatly appreciated, guys. Helps me out in a big way. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. And I'll be here all NBA DFS season long, breaking down these NBA DFS slates to help you guys become better NBA DFS players. Golden State Warriors taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. This game is going to be one of my least favorite games on the slate. 215.5 over under. Klay Thompson's returning for the Golden State Warriors. Really great to have him back, but I do think that's going to kind of clog up the usage even more for this Golden State Warriors side. On the Cleveland side, they're starting to get pretty healthy. Evan Mobley, Kevin Love, Jared Allen, all kind of cutting into each other's usage, so that's not exactly ideal, obviously. And then when you're looking to other guys on the Cleveland side, they're just not getting enough minutes for me. The one guy that's kind of looking a little bit interesting for me is Chetty Osman at 4.7, but do we really want to play Chetty Osman at 4.7? I don't really think it's necessary on a slate like tonight. I mean, he could certainly get you there. Grades out is a pretty respectable play overall on my sheets, but I don't know. It's just he's not exactly the worst fantasy point per minute producer on the season either, which is kind of making me question myself. 0.92 DK points per minute. I've got him projected to play right around 31 minutes. That's right where he's been on the season. The problem is the Golden State Warriors are the #1 defense in the league. You get Klay Thompson back. He's an elite defender. This game only has a 215.5 over under. I guess you can make a case if the game turns into a blowout that Chetty Osman could get some more additional runs, so that's interesting. But I just think this game overall, I don't have too much interest in. The one thing that I'm going to say, and I said it in my video earlier, that I think could be interesting is Jordan Poole off the bench now is going to be the sixth man for this Golden State Warriors team. So that means he's going to get all the usage with the second unit, whereas he was used to playing along Stephen Curry, Andrew Wiggins, those other guys taking up his usage. He's priced at 5.7. I would still expect him to get a pretty decent allotment of minutes. Klay Thompson's going to be limited in his return, and he could be a sneaky play off the bench as a sixth man that's going to get a lot of usage in tournaments. So I do think that Jordan Poole is a pretty intriguing option in tournaments. People oftentimes make the mistake of when a guy gets ruled out of the starting lineup and he becomes off the bench, they think that that's like a downgrade. For Jordan Poole in this spot, I mean, he goes from being with the first unit and getting his usage taken away from Steph Curry to Andrew Wiggins to being with the second unit and getting all the usage when he takes the floor. So I think that Jordan Poole could really be a great sneaky tournament option on the slate tonight, and someone that I would certainly be willing to get some exposure to in my tournament lineup. So that would be probably my favorite play from this game. Other than that, I really don't think it's too necessary to be going here. Darius Garland would be the only guy I would mention. If the game stays close, there's a solid chance that Darius Garland has a really good game here. He's seen his price tag plummet from 9.7 to 8.7. So taking that price tag discount, he's shown that he can easily go out there and put up 50 DraftKings points. So he would be my favorite option on the Cleveland side to really pay off this price tag. But once again, do we have some better options on this slate and faster up-tempo games? Pretty likely. So he's contrarian. If you want to go there, sure. But we're going to move along further on this slate. In these last two games, we talked about the Minnesota game. We talked about the New Orleans Pelicans game. These last two games, once again, feature a fantastic fantasy point environment. De'Aaron Fox is listed as questionable in this one. That's obviously a very big piece of news because if De'Aaron Fox is ruled out, Tyrese Halliburton is going to be one of the top plays at 6'9". He's going to become the point guard on this team. He's going to take over all the usage is Mr. Tyrese Halliburton. And with that being said, he becomes a really good play, and he's taken on a Portland Trailblazer team that ranks dead last in the league in my defensive half-court and putbacks tool over here on my Patreon package. 30th overall, 30th in half-court points per play rank. Surprisingly, though, they are doing a pretty good job of not allowing a lot of plays against them. I don't really know how that pans out, but regardless, just really bad job on defense has Portland done. And if there's no De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton becomes a big priority for us. So that is a big piece of news in this game. The Portland Trailblazers continue to be without Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. Anthony Simmons still priced very reasonably, taking on the Sacramento squad that ranks as the fourth worst team in the league defensively. And they really grade out as a terrible team defensively. On the glass, specifically, Sacramento ranks dead last on the glass in offensive rebounding percentage given up. So what does that mean? Going to be a fantastic spot for a Yusuf Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic should absolutely thrive in this spot. Like I said, Sacramento just doing a terrible job of crashing the glass on defense. Alex Len's expected to get the start at center. I don't think that's going to help their case too much. Alex Len, not exactly a traditionally dominant defender, so I certainly think that Yusuf Nurkic is going to be a great play on this slate tonight. Sacramento really struggling on the glass, and like I said, if there is no De'Aaron Fox, that's a big piece of news. It's going to be Halliburton, the biggest bump up, but also Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, you could be taking a much bigger look to. We could also be seeing some more usage for a Marvin Bagley at 4.8. So really need that news. Unfortunately, this game starts at 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock lock tonight. So not ideal, but Another big piece of news, Alex Len taking on a Portland squad. We talked about them really being terrible defensively. They're also allowing quite a bit of putbacks, 18th in the league in putbacks, 30th overall in half-court points per play rank. Alex Len, we saw him go off last night. Damian Jones was removed from the lineup. He went out there and played 28 minutes, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 39 DraftKings points, and he now becomes one of the top value plays on the slate. So I think Alex Len really going to take on a bigger role here with there being no Damian Jones. Tristan Thompson has been really cut as far as his minutes are concerned out of the rotation. The only thing that could possibly cause an issue for us here is that, from my understanding, Maytu just became a questionable. He got a questionable tag rather than being out. I believe I saw that update come through. If you guys saw anything different, let me know in the chat. But I think I could have swore I saw Maytu being listed as a possible questionable. Yeah, right here. Conditioning, now listed questionable. So he goes from being listed as out to questionable. If he's ruled in, that becomes a much different dynamic for this front court. He should still be limited, you would think, somewhat. I mean, we really need to get confirmation on the starting lineup, but it would make it so that Marvin Bagley and Alex Len have one more guy to compete with in the rotation. I still think Alex Len at his price tag is a really intriguing play. Marvin Bagley, I think, would be the one that gets the biggest cut here, considering his price tag is a little bit more expensive. But, yeah, that would be my approach here with this team. Okay, Memphis taking on LA Lakers. Another game where we got some big pieces of news. Dylan Brooks was already ruled out. Steven Adams was already ruled out. Kyle Anderson listed as questionable. Desmond Bane was a new addition to the injury report. He wasn't listed as questionable. Now he is. So I think we could see seeing this this Memphis Grizzlies team being really shorthanded. John Morant's listed as questionable as well. I do have him projected as out right now. Obviously a big piece of news, guys. So I'm projecting that it's going to be Tyus Jones, DeAnthony Melton, Brandon Clark getting a big bump up in usage here, as well as Jaren Jackson. So obviously we do need confirmation on this news, but for the time being, I really do think that this is going to be a great value spot for these Memphis Grizzlies. It's all going to start with Jaren Jackson Jr. and my lock of the night and Brandon Clark. Both those guys should get a big bump up in minutes and usage with there being no Steven Adams, so I really like both of them. This game has a fast, up-tempo game environment. It's a 3.5-point spread in favor of the LA Lakers with a 226.5 over-under. So I certainly think you should be getting quite a bit of exposure to this game. I'm going to be taking a risk and hoping that these guys are all ruled out. That's going to be my approach. Just to be honest with you, it could come back to bite me. But Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, Tyus Jones, going to be guys that I'm getting a lot of exposure to at their price tags. I think that there's going to be no John Morant, no Desmond Bane. If one of those guys gets ruled in or both, we could always late swap onto them somehow if you kind of plan your cards right here to give you some flexibility. But I just don't think they're going to play. Once again, we're just kind of guessing. We really need those reports, but the problem is this game's the last game on the slate. We're probably not going to know that before lock. So you're going to have to kind of take a guess one way or the other. And like I said, I'm guessing they're out. So I'm going to like Tyus Jones. I'm going to like DeAnthony Melton. I'm going to like Brandon Clark a ton in this game. We did get confirmation that John Contra is going to be back. So he's going to be cutting into the rotation a little bit. But he's been out since December 27th. I don't think he's going to have a full allotment of minutes. He would be limited in his return, so I'm not too concerned about him affecting this rotation for those other guys too much. Same can be said for Xavier Tillman. He's been out since December 29th. I think these guys are going to kind of need to kind of get their feet back under them before they're getting a ton of minutes. So that's my approach for this last game. Running it back on the other side, Malik Monk has been going absolutely crazy. We've seen his price tag climb up to 6,300, but it is well warranted. 30, 41, 46 DraftKings points the last 3 times out, and they really need his scoring. Russell Westbrook has been struggling, really not scoring the ball effectively, so it's kind of turned into Malik Monk being the second scoring option. Westbrook just kind of out there trying to do his best, but the fact of the matter is he's been struggling. So on this Lakers side, for me, it's really going to be LeBron James 1, Malik Monk 2. LeBron James in a fast, up-tempo game, one that's expected to stay close, although his price tag's up. Makes a ton of sense. He put up 68 DraftKings points last time out. And I think it makes a lot of sense to be playing a LeBron James and running it back with all of this value. Like I talked about, Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, Tyus Jones. That gives you plenty of salary in your lineups. Should have plenty of salary to be fitting in a LeBron James tonight. So certainly do like that. All right, guys, 25 people in here, only 10 likes, trying to get up to 20 plus likes on all these live streams. If you're enjoying this content, if you could take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions, please do let me know in the chat. We just talked about DraftKings. We're going to switch on over to FanDuel, talk about FanDuel as well, look at the price tags, figure out if there's any big price tag differences in this one. And although we went over it, obviously the price tags do differ. So if those of you playing on FanDuel, let's talk about it a little. Once again, if you have any questions regarding DraftKings or FanDuel, please do let me know in the chat and I will help you out. All right, so FanDuel, a little bit of different pricing. We're going to go ahead and look at this. A lot of the stuff we talked about on DraftKings will apply here. The first thing that I will say is Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. at the power forward position, once again, are going to be big priorities for me over on FanDuel. The price tags are just too cheap. 6.2 for Jaren Jackson Jr. We saw him put up 63 FanDuel points last time. Now you take Steven Adams out of the equation. He's going to have a lot more rebounding upside, a lot more blocks upside, assist upside, everything, scoring upside. It's just one less guy that you have to worry about. And like I said, I don't think that we're going to be with both Desmond Bane and John Morant tonight. It's tough to tell. This is the last game on the slate. We won't have that news, but I'm assuming they're going to be out, and that's going to be even more usage for Jaren Jackson Jr. Same can be said for Brandon Clark. And regardless of those guards, these guys are the ones that are less impacted by that. There's no Steven Adams. Regardless, they're going to need their minutes in the front court. Guys like a Tyus Jones, a DeAnthony Melton, etc., are much more impacted by Desmond Bane and John Morant being ruled in. So these two guys, I'm willing to go all in regardless. Really going to like these guys tonight on FanDuel. So they're the first guys that I will point out. On FanDuel as well, the New Orleans-Toronto game, we talked about it, fast up-tempo game. The Toronto guys are just too underpriced. Gary Trent, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, all of these guys are priced very reasonably, all expected to play 30-plus minutes in this one, and all produced at a very high rate against a terrible New Orleans Pelicans team. So they're really grading out as great plays for me over here on FanDuel. The fact of the matter remains, the price tags are too cheap, and their minutes are really solid. This Toronto Raptors rotation, they do not mess around. All of these guys get 30-plus minutes, so I certainly would be getting a lot of exposure to them. Alex Len and Marvin Bagley, we talked about that with those guys being ruled out on the Sacramento side, with there being no Damian Jones. Both do grade out as pretty phenomenal plays for me over on FanDuel. 4-5 and 4-4, I do think they should get some more minutes, some more usage, more rebounding upside, more scoring upside, similar to what we just discussed with the Memphis Grizzlies guys. And for that reason, at their price tags, I think it makes a lot of sense to be mixing and blending some Marvin Bagley, some Alex Len in your lineups. In the low 4K range, they really don't need to do that much to pay off in a big way for you. And these guys are both guys that can go out there and get a lot of rebounds. Just the rebounds alone can get you there at these price tags. So making a lot of sense to me. DeAnthony Melton really grading out as a phenomenal play over here. He does have a much larger price tag than he does on DraftKings, so it's not quite as easy to be locking him in on FanDuel as it is on DraftKings. But the fact of the matter remains, when he gets minutes, he's a great fantasy point per minute producer. He could easily put up 40-plus FanDuel points tonight. So with that being said, I still think he's a good play over here. Don't get me wrong, the price tag over here on DraftKings looks a lot better on DeAnthony Melton. At only a 4.6 price tag, it's just an absolute lock if these guys are out. But I still think he can get you there on FanDuel. He still does grade out as a pretty great play for me. So I wouldn't be too scared to play him. Over here, Jonas Valanciunas, another guy's price tag, just way cheaper over here on FanDuel. We did get a bunch of value opening up at the center position. We just talked about it. So whether we really need to go up to him is a different question. But it could be contrarian with everyone going to value plays at the center position, at the power forward position. Maybe a lot of people don't quite get to Jonas Valanciunas. And if that's the case, you might get him at some more ownership than you should. Grades out as a phenomenal play for me, putting up 1.22 FanDuel points per minute, expected to play in the 30s in minutes in a fast up-tempo game. I think Jonas Valanciunas, great play on FanDuel specifically. You get that discount in comparison to DraftKings, so I'm willing to get quite a bit of him. Gary Trent, we talked about. OG Anunoby, we talked about. Those Toronto Raptors plays priced too cheap over here. Brandon Ingram, also another high-usage guy on the New Orleans Pelicans, with there being no Josh Hart in this one. It's going to be the Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas show for the most part. If this game has a chance of staying close, these guys are really going to have to step up and have big games. And like I said, it's a fast up-paced game. It's a 222 over-under, 8-point spread in favor of Toronto. If it turns into a blowout, obviously paying up for these guys is going to cost you. But if the game doesn't turn a blowout, there's a high likelihood it's because Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas are having very solid games. So, if you're making multiple lineups or if you're making one lineup, you're going to have to kind of take a stand there. But they certainly do grade out as good plays over here on FanDuel. And we talked about those Minnesota guys in this fast up-tempo game against Houston. This Minnesota-Houston game, I really do have a lot of interest in the studs on both sides. So who are the studs? Mainly Kevin Porter Jr. on the Houston Rockets and Christian Wood on the Houston Rockets. Those are the two guys I'd be wanting getting a lot of exposure to tonight. They're the ones with the highest upside in this fast up-tempo game. Once again, it's a little bit of a heavy spread in favor of Minnesota, 7-point spread. If the game stays close, chances are Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood having some really big games. So they're two guys I would definitely be getting quite a bit of exposure to if at all possible in your builds. A lot of people are going to be going to the value at the power forward position, I think. And don't get me wrong, it makes a lot of sense with all this value we've had opened up. But if Christian Wood can go out there and drop 60 points or something crazy, which he's capable of, he's done it before, you could be looking really good in tournaments in this fast up-tempo game. So those are the two guys to be looking to. And on the other side, it's Karl-Anthony Towns, it's D'Angelo Russell, it is Anthony Edwards. Those three guys. I mean, they're going to dominate all the usage. All three guys have a bunch of upside in this spot. Houston has been terrible defensively on the season. Looking at my defensive half-court and putbacks tool over here on my premium content sheet, you can see that Houston is 29th in the league defensively. That's second to last in the league. 24th in offensive rebounding percentage allowed. 23rd in putbacks allowed. So what does that mean? That means Karl-Anthony Towns should be able to absolutely feast in this spot tonight. So I think he's a phenomenal pay-up option. I like all these guys. Upside at his price tag, D'Angelo Russell is going to be my favorite option of the bunch. He's the cheapest at 7.6. We saw him put up 49 FanDuel points last time out. If he puts up 49 FanDuel points at only a 7.6 price tag, you are going to be looking very, very good in your tournaments. So, like I said, really liking the spot overall. Grades out as a great spot to be targeting on my premium content tools over here on my defensive half-court and putbacks tool. So I would encourage you to be getting some exposure to this game. All right, guys, I'm going to make sure that I answer any questions in the chat. If you do have questions in the chat, please do ask. I'll gladly help you out here. And if you're enjoying the stream, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. And as mentioned, I do offer some premium content tools. If you are interested in those, check them out over here, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. I will put the link in the chat. You get access to my premium NBA projections, NBA data sheet, player stats, team stats, play contact stats, core plays, all of that fun stuff. If you want to sign up, check them out. And if you haven't checked out the sponsor of the program yet, Parlay Play, I would highly encourage you to. We've been doing a Parlay Play bankroll challenge. We have had that bankroll up to over $500. I've gotten really risky on the picks as of late. Our record has plummeted. Our bankroll has come down a little bit, but the fact of the matter remains, I've been willing to get risky because our bankroll had grown so much to where I was willing to get risky, and I'm still going to be getting a little bit risky, honestly, until that comes down. We started with $10 risk-free bets. When you sign up today using that promo code KJK003, you will receive that yourself. You get a risk-free $10. You also get an instant match deposit up to $50 when you do use my link, so I will put that in the chat for you guys as well. You can check out all these links that I'm talking about down below in the description of all of my videos. But I will be giving out a Parlay Play of the Day 10x pick to multiply your money by 10 for every 10 likes that we get on the stream. Right now, we have 27 people in here, 16 likes for every 10 likes that I get, so we already have one pick. I will be giving out another pick where $25 will turn into $250 tonight. So if you like the content, if you want that pick, hit that like button. And check out Parlay Play, guys. Use that promo code KJK003. The easiest way would be to just click my link, and you will get an instant match deposit up to $50. When you use that code, you'll also get a risk-free $10 to start with off the bat, which is what we started with for this bankroll challenge. So let's make sure that we answer your questions in the chat. I want to make sure that I'm answering all questions for both DraftKings and FanDuel. Camilo says, only got one spot left, Melton or Tyus Jones. If I had to pick one of them, I really need to know the website you're playing on. So if you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel, Camilo, if you could let me know which one, and I can help you out with that question. If you're playing on... I think the answer is going to be D'Anthony Melton no matter what, to be honest with you. But it's just the websites are pretty important. But yeah, I think the answer will be D'Anthony Melton on both websites. I've got him projected. I mean, he's putting up 1.04 DK points per minute. As far as FanDuel is concerned, he's putting up 1.06 FanDuel points per minute. So I really like him on both websites. Tyus Jones grades out okay for me right now. But we're also waiting on that news that could really change things here. So that's me telling you that answer before we have the news. But yeah, Asoff says, any parlay play ideas? Yes, sir. I will give you my parlay play, my first pick, right after I answer all these questions. And then the second pick will come for every 10 likes. So like I said, if we get to 20 likes, I'll give you a second pick to 10x your money tonight, guys. On FanDuel, Cat or Russell? I would go... I mean, I really like both those plays, Patrick. I would go with Russell for upside at his price tag. He's just much cheaper. And the center position and the power forward positions offer a lot of value on FanDuel. So I think it might be making sense to go to some value there and paying up at the other positions. I'm going to have to start building some lineups before we get there, but just some food for thought. Arizona says, what's going on, KJK? Who do you like more, Vooch or Towns on FanDuel? Definitely Karl-Anthony Towns. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is in a smash spot here taking on Houston. They've been terrible defensively. They're terrible on the offensive glass. He's a great fantasy point producer. It's a fast, up-tempo game. So I really do like Karl-Anthony Towns. Second question, also I'm going different on FanDuel. I'm taking Morris at same price as Tyus. They both have upside for 30. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. If you want to go to those guys. What do you think about Mo Bamba? I like Mo Bamba quite a bit. He's still priced very reasonably across the industry. There is no Wendell Carter Jr. in this game tonight, so that should increase his fantasy point upside. And when looking at my premium content tools for defense, as far as the Washington Wizards defense, we can see that Washington grades out 22nd overall in points per possession rank. They are middle of the pack as far as allowing rebounds, kind of a 15th overall in half-court percentage of plays rank, and 11th in putbacks, 12th in offensive rebounding percentage allowed. So the rebounding not exactly looking like the best spot for him, but overall this defense just really isn't that great, and the price tag's very reasonable, and there's no Wendell Carter Jr., so I do think that Mo Bamba is a pretty great play. Camilo says, I'm on DraftKings. Yeah, I would go with D'Anthony Melton for the time being. However, with that being said, I think that could change when we get confirmation that Desmond Bane's out. I'm going to really like both those guys, to be honest with you, Camilo. I really like Tyus Jones. I really like D'Anthony Melton. I have a feeling my approach would be to play both of them. So just being honest with you, if you're telling me to pick one, I would go with D'Anthony Melton. But I really think I'm going to like both these guys. I think that we're probably going to be without John Morant, without Desmond Bane, and for that reason, really going to like both of them. So if you're asking me to pick one, I'd go with Melton, but I would encourage you to get exposure to both. All right, guys, let me know if you have no questions. We've got 23 people in here, only 16 likes, guys. Hit that like button. It really does help me out. I do greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please do ask in the chat. If we're running out of questions, I could bounce out of here. I do have to go update all of my core plays, my premium content, my projections, answer any questions in the Discord chat for my members, guys. The New Year's sale for the Discord chat, you can join the Discord chat for only $1 if you want to hop in there all the month of January. That's typically a $10 value. Also, the KJK DFS NBA package, you get the Discord included with that, as well as all this other fun stuff. So I would encourage you to check that out. If you do sign up for the annual option on any of my packages, you will receive 2 free months of Patreon. So you're paying up front for the year, but I will refund you for 2 free months of Patreon anytime you sign up for a yearly package. That's one thing I really haven't mentioned on the channel, to be honest with you, but I should, because that is a pretty good deal. So if you want to pay up front, if you want to just check it out for a couple months, but if you're really liking the content, I would encourage you to get that. And let's talk about some parlay play picks, guys. Let's talk about it. So, on parlay play, my first pick tonight, we got over 10 likes, so I'm going to be giving you guys, this pick will multiply your bankroll by 10. Raptors Pelicans, we talked about this game, fast up-tempo game. We talked about it being a great game environment. I think this is going to be a great opportunity to be targeting the guys that play a lot of minutes. And who am I talking about? I am talking about Jonas Valanciunas, Fred VanVleet, Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam. And instead of points, we're going to go with parlay points. Parlay points is the fantasy points on parlay play. I'm going to take the parlay points for every single one of these 4 guys. And I'm going to take the over on all 4 of them. What are the lines? 34.5 for Jonas Valanciunas, 35.5 for Fred VanVleet, 36.5 for Brandon Ingram, and 37.5 for Pascal Siakam. All these guys putting up over a fantasy point per minute, all expected to play in the mid-30s minutes. Really like this pick, and if you lock it in on parlay play, you will 10x your money. $25 will turn into $250. So I have already placed that myself for tonight. Would encourage you to check that out yourself. And like I said, make sure you use that promo code KJK003 to receive that risk-free $10 that we started this parlay play bankroll challenge off with. You'll also get an instant match deposit on your first deposit up to $50, guys. So check them out. Check it out. And that's my first pick. We're at 18 likes. If we get up to 20, I will give you guys another one. Any questions in the chat? Let's see. Arizona says, thoughts on Draymond in play at all? Only 7-7 on FanDuel. I don't really think I want to go there on this slate. We talked about there's so many good plays at the power forward position, man, that are cheaper than that in faster up-tempo games. I really don't want to be getting Draymond Green in my lineups tonight, to be honest with you. So that's a no from me. He grades out great on FanDuel. He gets a lot of blocks and steals. You get 3 points for every blocks and steal on FanDuel, which is great for the scoring format. But, I mean, there are so many options that I think could probably outscore him for cheaper. Christian Wood at 7.5. Herbert Jones at 6'9". OG Anunoby at 6'7". Scotty Barnes at 6'3". Jaren Jackson at 6'2". Jayshawn Tate at 6'1". Brandon Clark at 5'4". Robert Covington at 5'2", with there being no more Larry Nance Jr. So, and then we talked about the guys being out for Sacramento now. There's no Damian Jones, so Alex Len and Marvin Bagley at 4.5 and 4.4 both do grade out as pretty phenomenal value plays for me as well. So I have a tough time getting the Draymond Green on FanDuel. If you want to go there as a contrarian play, don't get me wrong. It can never hurt to get a guy low owned. He does have the upside, but I'm also just really not a fan of this game environment. This game comes in right now with a 215.5 over under. That's one of the lowest on the slate. That is the second lowest total on the slate. So I'm just really not too much of a fan of targeting that game tonight, to be honest with you. Draymond Green does do some really great stuff for FanDuel scoring format, but yeah, steals and blocks, they're going to need him against Cleveland Bigs. Yeah, I get the reasoning. I do. I just think I probably want to go cheaper at the position. There's just some really, really, really good value there. So if you want to go there, sure. But that would be my honest answer for you. I just think there's some other cheaper plays. It's certainly contrarian. So I don't think you're crazy. If I thought you were absolutely crazy and he was priced up like, in the 8K range or something, I would let you know. I think it's a reasonable play. I just don't know if it's really optimal with all these other value plays we've had open up. All right, guys. 5:15 p.m. Eastern time. We got, I'm going to hang around for another 5 minutes or so, answer any questions you guys have in the chat. If you're enjoying this stream, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload, guys. Is greatly appreciated. Thank you for all your support. And if you have any questions, please do ask me. Otherwise, I'm probably going to bounce out of here, update all my projections, my core plays, answer any questions for my premium content members in the Discord package. I did just release a video on the channel on how my premium content tools work and what they have to offer. So if you're wondering what the package is all about, you can go ahead and check out my new video, How to Win at NBA DFS, where I talk about the things that I look for in my lineup to win at NBA DFS and also how I use my tools to do so. So if you want to check that video out, looking to learn in your free time, certainly I would encourage you to. Patrick says, FanDuel, Edwards or Ingram? Oh, that is very close, my friend. I would go with Ingram over Edwards because there's no Josh Hart. He should get a bigger bump up in usage, but I really do like both of them. But yeah, if I'm picking one, it would be Brandon Ingram. 8K, he's a little bit cheaper. There's no Josh Hart. He should get more usage, more upside. Whereas Anthony Edwards is dealing with sharing the usage with D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. But I mean, these are two of my favorite games on the slate. I would really encourage you guys to be focusing in on 4 games on this slate for the most part. And those games are the New Orleans Pelicans, Toronto Raptors game, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Houston Rockets game, and the Sacramento Kings, Portland Trail Blazers game, as well as the Memphis Grizzlies, LA Lakers game. Those 4 are really standing out to me. The 5th one that I would certainly be willing to get some exposure to is this Orlando Magic Washington Wizards game. But overall, I think I'm just going to be completely cutting the Nuggets game, the Mavericks game, and the Cavaliers game for my exposure. Depending upon that Luka Doncic news, if he's out, that would obviously make me have a lot of interest in the Dallas side of that game. But I kind of think that's how I'm going to be approaching this. And the only other person I would say is Monty Morris for the Denver Nuggets. He's really cheap starting point guard, but maybe JaMychal Green on the Denver Nuggets. But overall, I just think I'm going to cut those out. Mike Larry asks, Anthony Simmons or Russell? I need to know which website you're playing on. The price tags are different on DraftKings, I would go with Anthony Simmons at his price tag just because I think he has more upside at that price tag. D'Angelo Russell, certainly a great play as well. It's just Russell is priced up to 7.8. Anthony Simmons is all the way down to 6.5. However, on FanDuel, the price tags are a little bit different. So if you're playing over here on FanDuel, Anthony Simmons is 7.5, whereas D'Angelo Russell is 7.6. That becomes a little bit closer for me. So I need to kind of know on FanDuel. Okay. On FanDuel, 7.6 for 7.5. Well, I'm going to go to my projections for this one because that's really close. Tell you which one's grading out as a better play for me. Of the two, I would go with, let's see. I think D'Angelo Russell takes the edge for me on FanDuel. Yeah. I would go with D'Angelo Russell on FanDuel. He just grades out as a better play for me. On DraftKings, though, it's a little bit different. That price tag difference is a big deal. So, final answer on FanDuel would be D'Angelo Russell. I do like both those plays a lot, though. If you could play both, I certainly wouldn't hate it. But, yeah, if I'm picking one, D'Angelo Russell. All right, guys. If you have any more questions, please do ask them. Powell entered safety protocols. Okay, my phone is upside down right now. That was a mistake. Usually I have it up so I can see the latest updates. So, yeah, that's a big piece of news. Norman Powell being out. That's going to give a bigger bump up to Anthony Simmons, and that's probably going to change the question that I just answered. Anthony Simmons becomes a much bigger priority for me on this slate tonight. That it's also going to give a big bump up to a Yusuf Nurkic as well as a Nazir Little and Robert Covington. And Ben McLemore and Dennis Smith Jr. become much more viable plays as well. So that's a big piece of news there. So I would say we have a lot of value in these last two games, guys. This Memphis game and this Portland game, there's a ton of value to go around. I would strongly encourage you to be, getting this value in your lineup. And that's going to allow you to pay up for anyone you want on this slate. And I think the pay-up options we're going to want to get to are going to be LeBron James 1. You could get to a Fred VanVleet in that game, but I mean, my top two pay-up options on the slate are going to be Karl-Anthony Towns and LeBron James. So I think that this is going to make it so we can get Karl-Anthony Towns and LeBron James in our lineups fairly easily on DraftKings. I would strongly encourage you to do so. And yeah, it should be a fun slate tonight. All right, guys. I'm going to bounce out of here. I got to update all my premium content things, my projections, answer my premium members' questions. So if you want to join, go ahead and check it out, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. Thank you for everyone tuning into this live stream tonight. I wish you all the best of luck. And we will see you in the next one. Good luck tonight, guys. I'm out of here. Peace.